So hello and welcome to this video, and this video is about goals, targets and objectives, and it's about setting those goals and targets and objectives. And this is a part of any business or any organization. It will certainly be a part of your life, or maybe it is already a part of your life, and it really should be a part of your studies. And in order to set goals successfully and have a chance of success in setting these goals really need to have a sense of purpose, they need to be structured, and they need to have a plan. And if in any course or any business English course or in any assessment or exam you want to discuss, or you find that you are discussing the matter of goals and objectives and setting these goals and objectives, then one thing that you might want to bring into the discussion is the SMART method. So let's have a look at this SMART. Now, SMART is what we call an acronym, and that simply means that every letter stands for a certain word. Now, S stands for SMART, M stands for Measurable, A for Achievable, R for Relevant, and T for Timely or Time-bound. So let's go through these words in a little bit more detail. So let's first of all start with specific. And specific is exactly what it says. It's about the what. It's about being specific with the goal. So some goals that we have in life are really wide. For example, if I say that I want to get more fit, this is a really wide goal. But if I say that I want to increase my running time from 1 hour to 50 minutes, then this is a much more specific goal with a much more narrow focus, and this will be easier to achieve, and it will be easier to have success with this goal. Now, if I come on to the M, then M stands for measurable, and this is about the measurements. This is all about the evidence, which is mostly to do with the numbers and the statistics, or the things that happen that show that I will have achieved a certain goal. These are very often numbers, they're very often metrics, they're very often the quantifiable things in the goal. And then we come on to the achievable. And achievable is then really all to do with the how. Now, when you set a goal, or when a goal is set, do you have the resources or the things around you that can help you achieve this goal? If something is missing, what exactly is missing? And can you find the things that can replace the things that are missing? Achievable is also about setting a goal that is not too big and it's not too small. So if I set a goal that's much too big, or I set a goal that's much too small, then these will feel that they're either really unachievable in the case of too big, or they're really too easily achievable under the small. So I need something that's big enough, but it's also challenging. Then we come on to the letter R, and R, as we said, stands for relevant. And this is to do with the why. Why are you setting this goal? Why is the goal relevant? Make sure when you set goals that they're aligned to things when you're working in a business. Make sure that they're aligned to the values and the overall objectives of the company. And then we come to time, or sometimes people call this timely or time-bound. But the time is really, what is the deadline? This is the when. When are we going to achieve this goal? Having a goal with a deadline will really set an incentive, and again will give you a greater chance of success. So let's give 3 examples of using SMART. And the first one I'd like to do is relate it directly to your studies and doing a business English exam. So we could say that a very general target for doing a business English exam is that you simply want to get better. Now, get better, if we look at it, this is quite a big target. So if we look at the first letter, which is specific, then we need to narrow and focus this target a little bit. So let's take the target that the target is to get the top grades in the next business English exam. Then we come to the measurable, the M part. Now again, when it comes to exams, this is not too difficult to find the quantifiable method of establishing whether you achieve the goal or not, because every system and every institution has its own way of grading papers. And for example, you could take the grades going through from A, which is the very top grade, to B, to C, to D, to E. So we know that the top grade is A, and we know that if we achieve A, and A is in a specific range of points for the exam, this is the way of knowing whether you achieve the goal or not in measurement terms. And then we come on to achievable. Now this is all about how can we achieve this goal? Now we can look at different aspects. Now the first aspect is what you've been getting in grades before you've come onto this exam. It could be, for example, that on your course that you've already done 2 business English exams and you've got very reasonable grades on these exams. They were B plus. So setting an A as a target for your next exam is very achievable for you. It could also depend on language level. Maybe you know that your language level and you have been tested maybe in a general English at a B2 C1 level, and the exam is at a C1 level. So just by putting in the business English and learning the business English material, you have a good chance of achieving the top grade. Another thing that you want to look at, as we mentioned before, is resources. What resources do you have in helping you study and learn and get this top grade? This could be that you've attended the lectures very regularly and you've got comprehensive notes and you can use those notes. You've got a certain amount of time between now and the exam, let's say 5 weeks, and you look at your diary and you set down times and periods where you can study and learn the material you need to get this grade. And maybe you already have some kind of study group, or maybe you can establish a study group and you can get together and put together periods again when you talk about and you discuss the materials that you need in order to get this top grade. And then we come on to the R, which is relevant. So how relevant, or why is getting the top grade relevant to you? Well, it could be, for example, that you want to go and study abroad and you want to study in an English-speaking country and you want to go there for a year and you have a certain really good university in mind and you really want to go there. But you know that to get there, to get a place at this university, that you really need the best grades possible in order to go to this university. It could be after your studies that you want to work for an international company and you have a certain company in mind and you really want to work there. And you know that this company is international, it uses English as a business language, and you know that by getting the top grades in business English, that this will give you a much better chance of getting the job that you want in this company. So the goal is relevant for you. Now the last one, time or timely or time bound, is quite simple when it comes to exams because the deadline will be given to you. Exams have set dates and you know the day or the day and the time when you will be doing this exam. And this is your deadline for the exam. So that was an example of using SMART for your studies. Now let's have a look at a quick use of SMART in a business scenario. And let's have a look at these pieces of information. So this is to do with a sales team of 10 people who need to get expertise in a software called ABC. Now, customers are increasingly asking for ABC data, and getting ABC expertise will gain a competitive edge. The company needs to arrange 3 workshops for the sales team with a trainer from the ABC company. And when the sales team do the workshops, they need to attend for 90% of the time, 90% attendance. And when they rate the training after the training has finished, there needs to be a 75% satisfied rating. The workshops need to be completed. The completion deadline is the end of the second quarter. Dates need to be scheduled for the workshops in the first quarter and the second quarter, and the workload of the sales team needs to be adjusted so that they can attend the workshops, and a trainer from ABC needs to be booked. So let's have a look at putting these 5 pieces of information into the SMART objectives. And if we do this, then we get this answer. So the specific goal is that the sales team of 10 people need to get expertise in ABC software. The measurable bits are the bits really with the numbers. So there are 3 workshops, and there needs to be 90% attendance with a 75% satisfied rating. Is it achievable? Are the resources there? Well, yeah, it's a matter of scheduling the dates for the workshops in the first and the second quarter, adjusting the workload of the sales team, and the trainer from ABC has been booked. Is it relevant? Well, yes, it's really relevant because the customers are asking for ABC, and knowing about ABC and getting expertise will give the company a competitive edge. And we have the deadline, the time, the completion deadline is the end of the second quarter. So this is an example of using SMART in a business scenario. Now, if we come on to the third thing I want to talk about is then introducing SMART into your discussions about objectives and targets and goals. So if you find yourself answering a question in your business English class, or maybe in another module, or on your exam, or in the oral part of your exam, and you find yourself talking about setting objectives and targets, an example here might be, as we saw in the previous video with performance management, which was all about setting objectives. Then you might want to talk about defining these objectives. And when you talk about defining these objectives, then you can discuss SMART and introduce SMART and talk about what SMART is and how it works. If you have more time, then you may want to give an example, as we've just done, of how SMART actually works. So then we come to the final question of this video, and we've used 3 words here. There are targets, there are objectives, and there are goals. And one of the questions I've often been asked is there a difference between objectives, targets, and goals? Sometimes in other languages, there is only 1 word or maybe 2 words for these 3 things. Now, the first thing I would say is I wouldn't worry about it too much. Very, very often the 3 words are used synonymously. They're used to mean the same thing. They're used interchangeably. If you did want to make a difference, then I would say that goals, I would concentrate on goals being more in the long term. It's more to do with vision. So it's our goal to be the world leader in cosmetics. Objectives might be much more in the short term, and you set objectives in order to achieve your long-term goals. And you will set these sort of milestones, these objectives on the way to the long-term goals. It's our objective to produce a range of organic cosmetics products by the end of the year. And then if we take targets, we could say that targets can be used as indicators on the way to the objectives. So we need to have produced 50% of the range by the end of the second quarter and 80% of the range by the end of the third quarter. This could be an example of using goals, objectives, and targets. So this was it for this video. It was all about defining goals, targets, objectives, and using the SMART method. Thank you for listening. Again, please like and subscribe. Please feel free to comment on my videos. Is there anything that you would like me to add to these videos? Is there any more information that you need, or are there any specific topic areas that you would like me to look at in future videos? So thank you again for listening to this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.